Tonga. I am thrilled to serve here at such an important point in the 50-year history of our bilateral relations. The U.S. Embassy it celebrates our common history and our enduring partnership. Our forebears fought side by side for freedom in World War II and more recently in Iraq and Afghanistan. And today we remain committed with Tonga and the Pacific Islands to ensure a resilient, prosperous, healthy, and sovereign Pacific Island region. Discussions are currently underway to open a U.S. embassy here in Tonga. That embassy will not only strengthen relations between our two countries, but also between the approximately 68,000 people of Tongan descent living in the United States with their loved ones here in Tonga. I cannot give an exact date right now when that embassy will open, but please know that this is a priority that enjoys bipartisan support in Washington, D.C. and at the highest levels of the U.S. government. The Pacific Islands are amongst the most vulnerable to climate change, and the Biden administration shares your concerns. The administration is committed to enhancing access to disaster finance, advancing early warning systems, and improving the global response to climate-related disasters and slow onset loss and damage. At COP27, we worked with the nations in attendance to further global cooperation on emissions reduction, climate finance, and other means of building resilience against climate change. Security cooperation is another area where our friendship with Tonga shines. Tonga receives U.S. foreign military financing to equip military and participates in international military education and training programs. Since 2014, the Nevada National Guard has partnered with Tonga's military forces to collaborate in areas of mutual concern. And just last week, General Pearl from the Nevada National Guard was visiting here in Tonga. Tonga is also one of the 11 Pacific Island nations with whom we maintain a bilateral shipwrighter agreement. This agreement allows your law enforcement personnel to embark on U.S. Coast Guard ships to observe, board, and search vessels suspected of breaking laws within your exclusive economic zone. This agreement was exercised last month when the cutter, U.S. Coast Guard cutter Oliver Berry, visited Tonga and embarked multiple shipwrighers to patrol Tonga's EEZ. Our partnership also extends into humanitarian aid. Next month will mark a year since the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcanic eruption, and that's not a day I think anyone will soon forget. Thanks to our close cooperation, we worked together towards Tonga's recovery, utilizing long-standing disaster risk reduction and resilience programs funded by the United States and implemented by on-the-ground Tongan organizations. We also connect through sports. Currently, there are 4 Tongan youth rugby coaches, along with compatriots from Fiji and Kiribati, who are in the United States for a 2-week professional development program sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. While they're there, the coaches will take part in workshops, attend conferences, and meet their American youth coach counterparts. They'll come home to Tonga with the skills necessary to help turn their players into leaders in their communities, as well as winners on the pitch. It is my great honor to be the U.S. Ambassador to Tonga, and I am humbled for the opportunity to build on 50 years of close partnership between our nations. Our shared values and common priorities will guide us as we move forward and as we continue to build a Pacific region resilient against environmental challenges, responsive to economic growth opportunities, and empowered to advocate for regional concerns on an international stage. We welcome all contributors to this endeavor so long as they adhere to high international standards, including in areas such as transparency, rule of law, sustainable financing, and respect for the autonomy of the development aid recipients. Now, we welcome any questions that you might have about our relationship or about our programs, and I hope to answer as many as possible. Thank you very much again, and is there anything that I can share with you today that is of interest to you and your audience? Don't be shy.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. Joshua Baka, excellent for the event. How are you looking at the opportunities for immigration for the 68,000 foreigners and the offspring that are now without documentation in the United States?
So it's my understanding that most of the Tongans who reside in the United States do so in status. There's a lot of debate on Capitol Hill about how to address the issue of people who are out of status in the United States, but we do urge people to come forward and try to regularize their situation because it allows them better access to U.S. government services. It certainly feel free if they believe they merit benefits from the U.S. immigration, from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, they should reach out. And certainly the U.S. Embassy in Suva is available to provide information. Thank you.
Malolele, and welcome to the Kingdom of Tonga, and congratulations on your recent appointment. Bafamanto Bola from the state media company, Tonga Broadcasting Commission. And my question is about the education sector. I understand that you talked about the other sectors earlier, but I understand that many Tongan students want to expose themselves and familiarize them with the American education system. Since you were recently appointed to the role to Tonga, do you have any plans on offering annual scholarships to the Kingdom of Tonga for students here in Tonga to study abroad in the United States? As I understand that other embassies are doing similar things.
Thank you very much for that question on one of the issues that's very near and dear to my heart personally. You probably are familiar with the Fulbright program that offers scholarships to students from across the Pacific, and as well as to students in the United States who want to come and do research or study in the Pacific. The U.S. Embassy has an American corner here at Tupou Tertiary Institute in Tonga, which provides education advising or Education USA services. They provide pretty comprehensive assistance and information about opportunities to study in the United States. And that's not just about scholarships that the US government offers, but about programs and scholarships that are offered by the private sector, by the schools themselves. It's almost 4,000 accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States, many of whom offer financial aid because they have a vested interest in having a broad representation at the schools. So I would really recommend for any Tongan student interested in studying in the United States, that USA education, that American corner should be their first stop for information, and we build from there.
Malo.
Thank you, Malo.
Ambassador, taking back to oil is a big problem in Tonga now, and the world as well. I know America used to be the benchmark for oil prices around the world, and I understand we have a big reserve of shale oil. Is there any chance, or is there any talks about America assisting the rest of the world? I know, I understand that the war in Ukraine is not helping, but is there anything that America can do?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, sir. Could you repeat it, please?
Oil issue, the prices are going up everywhere in the world. It used to be the benchmark from crude oil in America. You have a huge reserve of shale oil in America. I understand the prices are being pushed up by Ukraine and the Russian war at the moment. Is there anything that America is on the bench was trying to do about the prices of oil? I know America is facing the same thing.
Yes, it's an unfortunate side effect of Russia's aggressive war against their neighbors in Ukraine. It has caused a spike in energy prices globally, and I know that is adversely affecting all of the Pacific Island countries particularly, as well as our own energy market in the United States, because the petroleum market is a global market, not just a regional market. I do know that the administration has been very, very actively engaged in discussions trying to encourage lower oil prices, and certainly at the end of the day, encouraging Russia to cease their aggression against Ukraine so we can cease the turmoil that has consumed not just the petroleum market, but also the price of food around the world. So thank you for the question.
Well, good afternoon, Madam. Darling from FM 88.1. My question is, I think it will be more like a comment or asking for your opinion as a new ambassador. With regards to Tongans traveling to Fiji to apply for a tourist visa to the United States, or in terms of study and in other ways, there are a few government officials, a few locals who went to Fiji and got their visa denied by the embassy. I understand that a few countries have their own selection criteria of awarding tourist visas to travel to America. But my question is there any way of having to know it here in Tonga before going to Fiji that your application will be denied, or you have to go through the same process of interviewing in the embassy office and get denied? My concern is the cost of travel from Fiji, from Tonga to Fiji. I think for one particular person is to go and apply for a visa, it might cost around 4,000 or 5,000, including accommodation and everything. Do you, as a new ambassador, consider some way of solving this problem?
Thank you very much for the question. The issue of access to consular officers who can adjudicate visas is one we face, in countries around the world. I myself have conducted visa interviews in about 6 different countries, I think. And the issue of having to travel in order to access the U.S. Embassy, because according to U.S. law, unfortunately post-September 11, 2001, Congress amended the law to indicate that pretty much everyone, with relatively few exceptions, everyone must appear in person in front of a consular officer, provide their biometrics, which means a photo and 10 fingerprints, in order to have the United States adjudicate a visa. We don't do what you might consider pre-adjudication. That is to say, we depend for a great deal of the decision-making on the interview with the individual who comes before us, which has to happen in person. But when somebody is coming to apply for a visa, maybe it's helpful to know that the officer is essentially looking at 3 questions. Why is that person traveling to the United States? What is their primary purpose of travel? Because we lead complicated lives, we can have multiple purposes. But the primary purpose determines which visa category the officer then adjudicates. So the second question then becomes, what are the qualifications for that visa? So if you applied for a tourist visa, but you want to go be a student, we're going to have to deny the tourist visa, but we'll talk about the requirements for a student visa, which is a little more complicated. Likewise, if you apply for the tourist visa, but your intention is to live in the United States, we have to deny that because you need an immigrant visa. U.S. immigration law is quite lengthy. It also has provisions on ineligibilities, and that's the third question. If somebody is traveling for a specific purpose, are they qualified for that? And then are there any ineligibilities that might disqualify them from a visa? So we really do depend on talking to that person, because that person can give us the best picture of their life and their purpose of travel. I do absolutely understand the frustration in terms of time and money that is incurred when you have to travel to Suva in order to do that. I ran into it in London when everyone from Scotland was like, this costs me money and time and it's days, why do I have to do this? So I do sympathize. We are hopeful at some point we can make that easier for Tongans because there is that strong connection with the Tongan American community. So that is one of the things we're looking into, but no final decision about the number of officers and the services to be provided at the new embassy here in Nukuʻalofa. That decision has not been made yet.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more question.
Yes, sorry, that was a very long answer to a very specific question.
Well, maybe there is no one else, but thank you for your time. You mentioned in your answer 9/11. I understand there was no threats from any of the Pacific Islands. We were friendly people, so it's something for the U.S. to consider in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your questions, and it's a real pleasure to meet you. Thank you. I look forward to talking to you again.
Does anyone have any questions on